Over the years, I've had about 6 Lexus LC 500s to drive, the V8, the hybrid, hardtop convertible. And I figured with 2023 models coming out, I should call and get a new one. So we got one coming, and here's the price sheet, so let's take a close look. I see they're still made in Japan. That's good. That explains the high quality. And look at this orange paint. This should be interesting. So here's the base price, $93,450. Let's look at the option sheet. Heads-up display, $900, but all the other Lexus models it's $500. I wonder why they're charging more on this. Well, because they can, that's all. Fancy audio system, 13 speakers surround, $1,220. That premium metallic orange paint, $595. And I can see this one's going to cost a lot. The dynamic handling package, 21-inch forged wheels, limited slip differential, active rear steering, that's not cheap, variable gear ratio, well, you can read all this. Expensive, we can see that already. That adds a nice tidy $9,570 to the price tag. Is this option worth it? We'll take this out on the road and find out. And there's the total tab. What a deal. And this is the V8 model, 5.0 liter V8, 471 horsepower, 10-speed automatic. And here's the claimed fuel economy. We'll be taking this out in the real world to see if these numbers are accurate. We're going to do a lot of driving on this. If you like Lexus vehicles, we also drove the all-new LX600. What a monster that was. Expensive, too. We have a link for that video at the end of this video. And we also drove the Toyota Supra with a 6-speed manual. About as fast as this Lexus and a lot cheaper to buy. We have a link for that video as well. So let's open the door and roll it out. And the styling hasn't changed much over the years, but doesn't really need to. This is a really sharp looking vehicle. And I do like that orange metallic paint, although it looks more like a copper color in person. And here's a side view. And the rear. Shipped it away all the way from Texas, just for us. Of course, it got shipped all the way from Japan before that. Even though I find this front end attractive, you gotta be careful because it rides rather low, and if you get too close to a curb that's a bit too tall, bad things can happen. And because of low ground clearance, you gotta be careful when going over speed bumps as well. Although the cats in the neighborhood appreciate it, it allows them to hide from the vicious killer dogs that roam around neighborhoods, like we saw yesterday. You better leave that cat alone. Come on, get him. Get him, boy. Get him, boy. Get him. One of the first things we do, we get a vehicle to check and see if there's a spare tire. There's not. There's no room in here. That's why I have my tire repair kit. And under the floor is a battery, so no spare tire for you. And the second thing we do is take the headlights out in the dark and see how they perform. We did that in a separate video, but we'll have that performance here in part 3 of this video. These are triple beam LEDs, usually a $1,200 option on other Lexus cars, but standard on the LC500. We'll be taking these out in the dark, so don't go away. And under the hood, I have no problem with the 4-cylinder engine, 6-cylinder engine, turbocharging, supercharging, electric engines, or electric motors, I should say. But nothing really beats a good old-fashioned V8. In this case, a modern V8, one of the best V8s on the market. Smooth, quiet, reliable. Decent fuel economy if you keep your foot off the throttle. So let's take a look at the cabin, and I'll show you some good features and bad features, and let's just get the bad ones out of the way right off the bat. And let's start with the rear seats, which really aren't seats at all. There's no leg room. For groceries and pets only. They do this mainly for insurance purposes. I can't imagine any human being sitting back here, but if you have some relatives visiting you want to get rid of, sticking back here for a nice long trip, and they'll be going home real quick. Probably never come back. Number 2 is the storage, or lack of it. There's not much room in this glove box. If you take this thick owner's manual out and stick it in the rear of the trunk underneath the floor, then you have a little bit of room. Other than that, it's pretty bare. You have a cup holder under here you could use to put small trinkets and change. And what about the console? What console? This is it. Slides back. This is all the room you've got. And last but not least, you have the controls for the info screen. It used to have a toggle switch. For some reason, they went to this finger touch system. So you just slide your finger around and pick out what you want. And I watched some of these amateur YouTube car reviewers telling us how nice this is to operate. Well, yeah, because your ass is sitting still and the car is not moving. Try doing this at 75 miles per hour, a bumpy road. Doesn't work too well. There is a learning curve involved here. And Lexus isn't going to change this anytime soon. This is a very limited production car. They make a couple thousand a year. Isn't worth the cost to redesign this, so we're pretty much stuck with it. So live with it. Fortunately, the radio controls are a bit easier. We have the seek button on the left, the tune switch on the right, and the volume in the middle. So you don't have to use the touchpad for that if you don't want to. And no, this is not a touch screen. It has a plastic cover over it. You have to use this. Alright, let's look at the positive features, and starting with this little control knob here, giving you normal, custom, comfort, sport, or sport plus function. And when you change the modes, you get a light show. We'll be doing this in the dark later on in the video. We got a bit of less glare. We get a real clock. Nice to look at in that digital junk we get in the less expensive cars. And this one will actually work when the warranty goes out. The climate controls are very simple to use. The auto-dimming mirror can be disconnected by pushing a button. We'll talk about that later on in the video. And for those who like to shift gears manually, we have paddle shifters, and what's more important, they're put on the steering wheel where they belong, which means they can always be reached by your fingertips. Going in a straight line, mild curves, strong corners, always reachable. Compare that to the paddle shifters mounted on the steering column in a fixed position like the Italians do, which is kind of a dumb place to put them because they can only reach when you're driving a straight line, not when you're taking corners. Bad idea. Which is why about 95% of cars have them on the steering wheel where they belong. You don't send me an email saying you're not supposed to shift in corners, or that's on the racetrack when you know what's coming up ahead. If you're driving on tight mountain roads, you don't know what's around the next corner, and you will be doing a lot of shifting in corners, trust me. They belong on the steering wheel. Lexus, you got it right. Alright, part 1 of the video is over, show and tell. Let's go out and do part 2 and do some driving. Lexus has done an excellent job on their power steering systems, making them feel hydraulic. One of the first companies to do that. I don't think there'll be too many complaints. As we're doing all our videos, we're going to take some mild speed humps around 15 to 20 miles per hour. See how the suspension performs on impact. I'm going to keep this in the comfort mode, which softens the suspension. Bump number 1. And number 2, keep in mind these are large 21-inch wheels and tires, which will provide a bit slightly rougher ride over the standard 20-inchers. Okay, that was smooth enough. Very smooth in the front, a bit of wheel hop on the rear. Expected on a short wheelbase car like this. Number 3. Alright, and here's the big one. Overall, pretty smooth. I tried it in the normal and sport mode, and it was still reasonably comfortable. Let's try it in the Super Sport Plus. Get out of my way. Yeah, I felt a little more than I did on the Comfort. The steering feels a bit stiffer as well. Here comes the next bump. And the nasty one. I hear a lot more thumping, but I really don't have a stiffer ride sensation of the stuff coming to the cabin. The bottom line is all 4 modes are reasonably comfortable. From now on, all of our driving will be in the normal mode. I forgot to mention, this is available in a 6-cylinder hybrid. We did a review on that a couple years ago, and there's a certain type of people that want that vehicle, but not for me. I want the V8. Fuel economy in this V8's been around 16 to 17 in city driving, dropping down to 15.9. We're going to reset this and take a short highway trip. I'll do my best to keep my foot off the throttle, although it's hard. Even though the suspension on the LC500 is very nice and does a good job absorbing impacts, that's with the standard wheels. With these giant 21-inch tires and wheels, you're going to get a lot of road noise coming in the cabin. So if you're buying this for a second car or short trips, okay, but for long highway trips, these tires and wheels look cool, but might not be a good idea. Just saying. There you go, 26.1. Not bad for a high-performance V8 with less than 500 miles on the clock. This is a performance car, so let's take it out in the country and open her up. This car has excellent balance, making it great for taking corners. And with this rear wheel steering, it takes corners a lot quicker, so you really have to pay attention to what you're doing. The steering wheel inputs are very quick. And this V8 engine's pretty quick too. Yeah, baby. When you're on tight roads like this with sharp corners, that's when you can appreciate having the paddle shifters on the steering wheel, because they're always at your fingertips, whether you're taking tight corners, mild corners, or straight line. If I had a vehicle with the paddle shifters on the steering column, I couldn't reach them right now. Shifting manually would be no fun. Alright, don't send me an email telling me I was overshifting. I realized that, but I was making a point to demonstrate how the paddle shifters work better when they're on the steering wheel than the steering column. That's all. And frankly, when you put the transmission in automatic in the sport mode, it shifts itself pretty darn good. I always seem to know the right gear to be in. And with 10 speeds, shifting manually can sure wear your fingers out pretty quick. That's why I like the 8-speed automatics, but hey, we got a 10-speed, why complain, more gears. Works better when it's in automatic mode. The only sad part of an LC500 is a lot of people will buy these just to drive to the store or the country club. Never drive them the way they were meant to be, like this. Oh well. Yep, time to head back to town. Well, we're going back to town. Might as well do another fuel economy test. Alright, 26 MPG going to and 30 coming back. That's an average of 28. Pretty good for a V8 that's not broken in yet. Can't complain about that. So what's my take on this Lexus LC500 after a week of driving? Well, the first question is this performance package worth the extra 10,000 bucks? On the positive side, the rear wheel steering does allow you to get into corners and line it up a bit quicker. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go through the corner faster. The only way I know how to explain it. And these 21-inch tires look cool, but for long trips they're a bit on the noisy side. Here's the bottom line. If you're just driving this car to go to the country club or shopping, the performance package probably isn't worth the money, but if you're going to drive this car the way it's meant to, yeah, it probably is worth the extra money. You can afford the 100 grand for the car, you can afford the 10 grand for the extra performance package, I would take it. As far as this car's price tag, well, if you got a European sports car with a V8, it would cost you a lot more to buy. When European cars have an expired warranty, they start falling apart and would cost a lot more to own. But this is a Lexus. Build quality, reliability is far better than the European brands and should last a long, long time. That's why it's a Lexus. And it's a sharp looking car too. So if you have the money, I say go ahead. This officially concludes our road test video. We did do a separate video on YouTube showing the headlight performance and night drive. If you didn't see that video, well, you can see it now for part 3 of this one. Alright, it's dark enough. Let's take these triple beam headlights out and see how they work. Look pretty bright to me, and they're on low beam. And here's what the taillights look like. They're not very big, but bright enough. And the emergency lights, pretty big ones. Big and bright. Have it on the outside mirror too. Pretty bright, in spite of the small size. Yeah, now we can see it without the headlights on, drowning everything out. And from the rear, put the transmission in reverse, and this is what we see. A very small screen, but it's kind of cramped in here. And here's the gauge cluster. If you change the normal mode to Sport, Eco, gives you a light show. And we get a real clock. And moving down, all the buttons and knobs light up pretty good. And when you turn the steering wheel to the left or right, you get what are called puddle lamps. Lighting at the sides, so you see puddles or winos sleeping out in the street. Let's try this again where it's darker. There we go. Well, these are strong ones. Lighting up the whole neighborhood. Alright, let's get to the headlights. We have the low beams on, very bright, but just barely over the bushes. I've seen this before in other Lexus models with these triple beams. High beams, outstanding. Low beams, bright, but a bit lower than I would like. We're taking this out in the country and see how these work in the real world. Now let's take a dark, dingy street. No headlights, low beam, high beam. Great for long distance. And I see the image on the info screen got twice as big as what I saw when I had the transmission in reverse. Okay. Yep, make the transition to reverse. Big difference here. Never noticed that before. And once again, I cannot stand auto-dimming mirrors if they do not have a disconnect switch. I do not want to drive in the city limits with blacked out mirrors. It's not safe, in my opinion, but we do have a disconnect switch here to turn it off, so good to go. And for small dark streets like this, the low beams do a pretty good job at close range, but you really want the high beam for best effect. This neighborhood has more cars than a car lot. Unbelievable. So let's take this out on the freeway, see how it lights up the road. And here we have some road signs that need lit up. High beam, low beam, high beam, low beam. And it looks like we have a bunch of cones laying out in the road. We don't want to hit those. Not a brand new car, it's only got 450 miles on it. Of course, I wouldn't want to do it if it had 4,000 miles on it, but you get my point. Lots of road signs to light up here. Alright, let's take this out in the sticks. As you can see, when you have headlights that cut off rather sharply, it can be a problem when you're entering dips. I cannot see what's on top of that hill. Could be a mountain lion or a skunk. That's common on a lot of LED headlights. Very strong on high beam, but don't give you much on low beam. You don't want to be on low beam on roads like this. There's too much wildlife out here. You might run over something you don't want to. So on a road like this, you got to use the high beams. That's especially if you're taking corners in a hurry like we are here, but that's what the car is made for, so that's what we're going to do. So here's the ultimate headlight test. Can we light up the jail from this distance? And on high beam, yes we can, but go to low beam. Not much. Can't even see the jail sign. So it flunked this test, but seems pretty reasonable on all the other tests. And here's another reason you need nice headlights, because you don't want to drive through that unexpectedly, especially in a low-slung sports car like this. So we won't.